The Dog and Deuce Show is produced by Dymar Productions in association with Studio B Productions.
Welcome to Utah's longest-running sports podcast. This is Dog and Deuce. Every week we are here to take a deep dive into the Utah Jazz, the Utes, the Cougars, the Aggies, and everything in between. On this episode, we get you ready for the second half of the NBA season. A lot of local fans are saying it's rigged against the Jazz. How much truth is there to that? Plus, how badly have you missed March Madness? It is back, and we are here to break down the conference tournaments going on all over the country. Also, we'll discuss the Nacua brothers transferring to BYU and react to Meyers Leonard's casual racism. We've got all that and a whole lot more coming your way on Dog and Deuce number 359.
From Studio B in Salt Lake City, this is Dog and Deuce. Join the conversation at doganddeuce.com or send an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening to episode 359 of the Dog and Deuce Show. If you want to know more, and I sure hope you do, follow along with the show notes at doganddeuce.com.
You can watch this show all weekend long on Cape Hatter TV or Backcountry TV, or you can listen wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We would love to hear from you. Send us an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com. I am Dog.
I'm Deuce.
And this is episode 359 of Dog and Deuce. So, James, quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
A longtime friend of the show, longtime listener, like really good friend of the show. He gave us an assignment. Matt Savis gave us an assignment for this episode. He wanted us to listen based on what happened at the end of the first half of the Jazz's season in not Detroit, in Philadelphia. He wanted us to listen to the Whistleblower podcast, which is a podcast I have listened to and I've discussed on the show before briefly. Did you do the assignment that was assigned to us by a longtime supporter and friend of the show, good friend of the show? Did you do the one piece of homework that he asked of us?
I mean, and he'll find out. He knows me better than that. Homework's not my thing. Homework is not, it's optional. I don't tell my kids this, but this is the motto I live by. Also, C's get degrees, which I'm very strong on. C's get degrees. Homework is optional. I mean, what I prefer is to look stupid. And so I will oblige, and I'll let you lead us on this. Real quick before we take off, breaking news. Duke is out of the WCC Tournament because of a positive test. I hope that doesn't spell disaster for what I'm excited to occur here shortly. And secondly, a few weeks back, we discussed how you must break in a hat. Mm-hmm. And I went against that credo. And as I currently view myself in the screen today, it is confirmation, no matter what anyone says, that you must break in a hat.
Dude, it looks good, man. It looks good.
No, it's off center, dude. I literally pulled this off the rack, still had the tag on it. Butte, Montana, the Stonefly shop. To our buddy up there, Mike Markham, wanted to say hello. Hope you're staying warm. I heard you got the needle in your arm, so you're on track to freedom and football this year. Congratulations. I had to wear it for that moment, but it's a little off. It's a little off center.
I think it looks good, man.
Our credo of breaking in hats, it's confirmed.
I mean, you do got to break in hats, but I actually think you're pulling it off. I think it looks pretty good.
Well, I'm pulling it off for a man up in the cold north, so I hope he's well. And yeah, let's carry on. Tell me about this Whistleblower podcast.
So it's about Tim Donaghy, and it's really about the NBA being rigged, and it really focuses on what happened during David Stern's tenure. And I've gone on record many times saying that I think David Stern was just blatantly corrupt. He didn't care. Like that. That's the thing. He was a businessman. He was there to raise the NBA to another level, business-wise, and he did a very good job of that. And it cost the Sacramento Kings and the Utah Jazz, allegedly, a couple titles, maybe, possibly. So It's a good podcast, man. You should really. I told you this before when we talked about it. You should go listen to it. But it really does come down to they mentioned in there that the NBA back then was basically akin to WWE wrestling.
Wow. Well, I'm going to one up that podcast. I've been in talks. Granted, it was 3.5 years ago with Tim Donaghy. He has already confirmed 3.5 years ago that he's willing to come.
I'm not sure he's going to want to this time because he does not come off looking great in this Whistleblower podcast.
I don't think he cares. From my conversations, email exchange with him that many years ago, he didn't seem to care. I'll start the fire again. See if we can get him on. Matty Drum, Savis, Matty James, and I'll listen for next week, or maybe it'll be Tim Donaghy right here in front of your face.
That would be sweet, man. That'd be sweet. I'm telling you, I think my guess is he's going to be a little bit more skeptical about going on to podcasts because this one, like, it did start out good, and he does not look great in this thing. That's all I'm going to say.
They gave him the business. Tell me how that developed.
They brought to light alleged elements of his character that did not paint him in a flattering light.
Well, I mean, bro, he was running. He was. I mean,
there's some other things.
You gotta know that. Like he went. Come on, he got convicted of rigging games straight up.
Well, true, but there are some other things in his personal life, particularly side women that don't paint him in the best light. And there were some things. I listened to this about a month and a half ago. I can't remember. And so I can't remember the exact details, but he may be a little bit more skeptical. But maybe, hey, use that James Mr. Deuce charm on him and work it, bro.
We're going to give it a shot. We're going to give it a shot.
Give it a shot. But I wanted Matt to know that I tried. One
half of us obliged you.
I tried.
That's better than most days.
That's true. I told him. I told him straight up. Because he asked us to do it, and I was like, basically, it's the All-Star break. I hate the All-Star break because I just hate not having Jazz basketball. Nothing's going on. You basically planned our whole show for us for next week. That's what I told him. But then little did I know that this show was going to be slammed with crazy news going on. So I tried, Matt. I'm sorry. You got to take it up with James, man. At Dog and Deuce on Twitter. Hit him up and tell him how disappointed you are in him.
Yeah, I wasn't copied on the email. I mean, he knows the email. He knows how to reach me.
But I told you a couple times.
I'm feeling disrespected that I wasn't copied on this email. Like, look, I'm going to HR immediately, and we're gonna have some issues.
We'll have some.
But issues. I will say, you may not have liked the All-Star game, and you never do because you don't like fun. You prefer but you're for optimistic movies, and I'm for depressing movies. You're a walking contradiction. You don't like fun. You don't like happiness at the All-Star game. But man, you always blame me for liking like Mystic River as one of my favorite movies or something. It's weird. It's hard to file. It's hard to keep your in line. I will say the dunk contest was a joke.
Yeah.
Whatever the dude was who hasn't dunked in an NBA game and came out with that in between his legs left-handed slam and got 38 for it. That's when I was just like, and my daughter came up and she's like, oh, these guys are awesome. I'm like, yeah, but they're really screwing over the dude who doesn't play in the NBA. That guy, that was the second best dunk of the night. I will give it to Anthony Simons, pardon me. His Tracy McGrady, ode to Tracy McGrady was sick. That was my favorite dunk. But that first one out, and I could just see him be deflated.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Just took it out of him.
He stole the show. Dominique, that's why we traded you to Atlanta, baby.
Yep.
Because you stole the show from a dude trying to make a come up. I always respect the dudes trying to make a come up. Steph put on a show as he does. I mean, is there anyone better ever at shooting the ball than Steph Curry?
I don't think so. I think at this point, there's not much debate at all.
Done deal. Yeah. I mean, it's insanity.
Conley gave him a run for his money, though.
He did, but he came up short. Steph took that money and the crown and then did it again in the All-Star game.
It's true. Yeah.
Little shimmy.
That half-court shot was pretty epic. Like, yeah. I did enjoy having it all on one day, though, because a lot of what I'm not big on, I mean, I'm fine with the All-Star break. I just hate not having Jazz basketball. That's the main reason why I don't like it, because it's like a week and a half, especially right now when they're playing so well. It's so frustrating. But I liked having it all in one day because it cut out a lot of the fluff. They were like they were moving, man. They shot it all before, and they chopped it up, and it was more palatable for me.
Yeah, I mean, I like Friday night. I'm not gonna lie, or Saturday night.
Night's
I like all that in one, where I can just kick back, crack a cerveza, and let it roll,
right?
And not really have to pay attention. Just when you hear like the announcers go crazy, run back. I mean, this kind of forced me to actually watch more of the game than I actually wanted to be perfect. Like, I don't really care about the game, although the game was interesting and, Dame did his thing. But I just like the 3-point dunk contest. Really, I could do without anything other than those two.
It's fun. But the Utah Jazz are getting ready to start up their second half of the season. It was not little. It was a very deflating end to the first half. A lot of things happened that really took the wind out of the Jazz sails, and I don't know if the break helps or hurts that. I think it probably helps it, but it just seems like, first of all, since Conley came back, and we've seen this before. It's not panic mode by any stretch. We've seen it before that Conley comes back from an injury, Joe goes back to the bench, and things are just a little off kilter. Not quite there. Teams are kind of figuring out how to defend the Jazz a little bit better. So it's just a weird ending. And I don't know, are you still as excited for the second half, or did that kind of take away some of the muster from it?
Look, I mean, they're still the number one seed, right? I mean, at the end of the day, when you end the first half of the season at number one, you can't get much better. But, the last... And I mean, I would even include the Lakers game, and we hit on that, but the last four, especially 3 losses. The Heat one, I'll let slide. The Pelican one, tough to stomach. The Sixers one, I mean, it clearly Embiid was on a mission, right? And he was successful. Although we didn't play terrible in that end game, and the officiating was obviously something we didn't get to discuss because we were off last week. The officiating obviously put us in a rough position, but still, you can't be up and have that lead and allow the Sixers with Ben Simmons, who doesn't shoot threes, to come back and take it from you. And they did, and they got to overtime. And granted, the officiating was bad, but that's something you're going to have to play through. Look, it's not, and I appreciated Rudy and Donovan voicing his frustration and disappointment with the officiating and Rudy having his back. So we've settled that, right? Done. They're boys again. Let's move on from that, never to be discussed again. But I would just encourage them to reach out to Karl Malone and John Stockton and be like, how did you deal with this? Or Charles Barkley when he was playing in Phoenix. I mean, the smaller the market you go, the more difficulty you have regardless. I mean, I feel like Karl and John maybe didn't complain as much as they could have about this, but those are 2 of the 50 greatest players of all time, according to the NBA, and I think most people who follow the sport, and they experienced it. So maybe this is part of, and I was thinking back, maybe this is part of the reason why the Jazz were labeled during that time the dirtiest player, because they had to know, dirtiest team, they had to know how to get away with it without getting called, because they knew if they did what everyone else did, those calls wouldn't happen. They'd go against them.
That's great point. That's adaptation right there. I never thought about that, but that's a great point, is when you're not getting, and I mean, I think a lot of it, Karl was just kind of that player, he was the guy who wasn't afraid to throw his elbows. I'm not even sure I would call him dirty as much as blatant. Dirty to me seems like you're kind of underhanded, doing sneaky things. And to me, Karl, and maybe I'm kind of misinterpreting that term, but Karl didn't care, man. He didn't care that he knocked out Tim Duncan with an elbow, like he was not afraid to mix it up and do it. John, on the other hand, John Stockton, I wouldn't say he was dirty. He was shorter than everybody. Jazz never got the calls. So I think you might have a point there that you got to adapt a little bit. You got to find a way to get over that hump, and that's one way to do it.
That Beastie Boys song, She's Crafty?
Yeah.
That's John Stockton to me.
Stockton.
Like he just knew how to play within the framework where they didn't get called. Was it all on the up and up? Probably not, but talk to the official. Go get a T. That's what I've been dealing with, So it's something they're going to have to adjust for. Am I super nervous? No, but this is a real, I think for Jazz fans, at least from my perspective, and if you analyze it, it's a real test. We talked about how on the other side of the All-Star break, it is extremely important for the Jazz to be the number 1 seed. And if they are true contenders, that must be. That's a given, right? If they start falling here over the next few weeks and are a 2 or 3, I'd say if they drop below the 2 seed. So if they're a 3, 4, or 5, then maybe we spoke too early about them being contenders.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of, yes, if they drop, I can see what you're saying, but they kind of forced our hands to start talking about them as contenders. You know, like the run that they were on was pretty incredible. And then here's a weird thing for me, and maybe it just shows you how little I was paying attention to this, but I was shocked to learn that on the back on the back half of this schedule, the Jazz have the easiest road the rest of the way. They have the easiest schedule in the league the rest of the way, which is crazy to me because it seemed like they were, maybe it's just because they were beating teams so handily that it seemed like they were just walking through teams. I will say the Jazz did get some benefit of some key injuries, playing against teams with key injuries and stuff. But I honestly was like, oh man, this back end of the schedule is going to be brutal. But I did not. They were just dispatching teams too easily. I think I was in my head. I'm thinking there's just no way that they're handling these teams. There's no way they're handling good teams this easily. There's just no way. But they are, and now they got an easier road than everybody. I think that is an important point here, because if they do drop and have the easiest schedule, it's a real sign for concern. Yeah,
right? I mean,
absolutely.
You would have expected sort of a reverse of the records based on Jazz history and strength of schedule, if you will. So if they do start to drop here in the second half, I mean, yeah, they totally forced our hand, contenders, right? But maybe we jumped the gun because of the things you just mentioned. But if they do struggle coming down the back half with the easiest schedule in the NBA, it's going to bring up real questions if we called that a little too early, maybe.
All right, let's run through the next couple games, and we're going to kind of plow through topics because there's so much to talk about this week. Friday, which is tomorrow, we got the Rockets at home. Then we're on the road for how many? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-game road trip, all back east except for Golden State. But so it goes Rockets. Then we hit the road with Golden State, Boston, and of course
Wizards.
There we go.
Raptors,
Yeah, sorry.
Bulls.
So we'll go up to we'll just go with the next 3 because that'll bring us up to the next time we record. So in the next 3, Rockets, Warriors, and Celtics. What do you got them going?
Hey, look, I mean, I'm interested to see, like, Golden State is a team that I'm really interested to see in the second half. There's a lot of talk around the NBA of, like, if they're losing the window on Steph's career, so to speak, for title contention. But I'm starting to wonder if the All-Star break for Steph isn't, and he's been playing well this year, but isn't him preparing to take it to the next level and add to that dynamic. Look, and this is totally just based on how I saw him finish. Okay. I have him going 1-2 with a victory over Houston and a loss to Golden State because it's on the road. Then you got to fly all the way across the United States of America. I would rather have Golden State be the finishing game as opposed to starting all the way back across to Boston, and a team in turmoil as well, sort of, with Brad Stevens and them not playing that hot to play the Boston Celtics, who those games seem to be always close, and they seem to have the right pieces to mitigate our advantages.
Here's the thing about Boston. They finished the first half pretty strong. They won 4 in a row to close out the first half before the break. So they were starting to get it together. And if you're a team that's been struggling all year and you're starting to click. I mean, we've seen this with the Jazz, starting to click and you're feeling good. And then you got a week and a half break. That's pretty tough. So we'll see what they can do after that, because I kind of get the sense with Boston that they're so close to being what we expected them to be. They just can't quite get it. And so we'll see if they come out strong after the break, then I worry about that game. I do.
And it's all for me with Boston. Like, look, I love Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum as players, right? Don't get me wrong. They're great players, but they really are, to me, sort of like Marcus Smart. That dude is the glue that binds, that, stokes the fire. And he's been out a lot this whole first part of the year. And every player or every coach needs that one player who they can turn to. And they're not afraid. They're willing to accept sort of the, tough end of the stick, if you will, from the coach.
Yeah.
Be willing to yell at and then relay that via yelling to their teammates. Marcus Smart is that man to me for the Celtics. And when he's not on the floor, they're, eons worse, if that's a way I could say it. Eons worse of a team. So I think he's going to be making a return and coming up. And I look for them to totally turn it around in the second half.
I kind of expect it too. But again, I expected them to come out hotter than they have. Golden State, again, very interesting to me. They're just a team with Steph Curry. You never know. It's going to be a tough game. I think all of these, maybe with the exception of Houston, I think these three games will be pretty close. I think Houston, they should come back. The Jazz should come back rejuvenized, ready to go. They had a break. Conley made it to the All-Star game. They should be ready to go. They should handle Houston. But those other two games, I wonder. I'm going to go 2-1 just to play it a little safe. I want to go 3-0 because the Jazz have been surprising me all season long, but I'm going to go 2-1. And I'm going to say I think Boston. I think that might be the game that trips them up a little bit. We'll see. We got to talk a little bit, and then we'll move on. We got to talk a little bit about what happened with Dennis Lindsey because we were off last week. This has been kind of a developing story. I don't think much has happened recently, but Dennis Lindsey is under fire from Elijah Millsap, who has alleged that he made a racial comment towards him. And I think as Jazz fans, we were all pretty surprised to hear this. We've not heard any rumblings or hushed whispers about Dennis Lindsey, ever speaking in these terms. So I really don't know what to think about it, but you have to take it seriously. And I've seen a lot of Jazz fans try and dismiss this outright, and I don't think you should ever do that. I think this is a very serious topic, especially the time that we're living in now, and I really think the Jazz need to dive deep into this. And if it ends up that he did say inappropriate things, he needs to go. I'm not saying he did or didn't, but if he did, he needs to go, and we need to not make excuses, and we just need to let it happen because we wouldn't accept that kind of behavior from anyone else on any other team. So we should definitely not accept it in-house. So I don't know what your thoughts were on this.
Well, I mean, first off, as I always start any conversation like this, there are two sides to the story. I don't know which one is correct, or maybe if there was a misunderstanding, let's let the investigation play out. I do find it somewhat interesting that Elijah Millsap isn't even calling for him to be fired, right? I mean, he says, I don't want him fired. He kind of wants maybe an apology or some kind of training. I'm not sure what he's asking for. And while I don't want to be one of those people who says I find the timing weird, it is interesting that this sort of hasn't come out earlier. I'm not sure why that is. And I'm not saying that changes whether or not it changes nothing, but it is several years in the past. I mean, when did Elijah Millsap last play for us? It was a while ago. So I'm not excusing it, but it is kind of a weird time where it came out. And the NBA is investigating. The Jazz have hired an outside firm. And we know how serious, at least from the talk early on, the new owner of the Jazz takes sort of inclusivity. And, he promised to be, on the forefront of the fight for Black Lives Matter when he took possession of the team. So, I mean, right off the bat, unfortunately for him, he's presented with a very difficult scenario. I mean, it's hard to deny the impact that Dennis Lindsey has had on the Utah Jazz. It's significant, if not, franchise altering.
He's the architect of this entire thing.
for sure. And so it will be interesting to see how it plays out. And I mean, I hope regardless of the conclusion of the investigation, we'll get a report where I can read. Right. I don't want a press briefing. I want to be able to read exactly how they came to the conclusions, what was said. Hopefully it's a misunderstanding, but Elijah Millsap seems to be pretty firm standing his ground that what was said. And let me be clear, if he did say that, it's inappropriate. It's inexcusable. And, if he needs whatever Dennis Lindsey needs to do to make it right with Elijah Millsap on a personal level needs to be done. And if there's a way he can continue to work in the front office that is okay with Elijah Millsap and Ryan Smith, then, I'll be fine with that. But those are big steps, right? Yes. I mean, and if the one thing that is promising for me from this perspective is that oftentimes when you hear one story like this, then a flood of more stories come. That hasn't come for Dennis Lindsey. So if it was a one-time deal and there isn't more of that out there, then maybe it is something that we can, again, not that there won't be any he won't have any responsibility to make it right. But maybe that is something where it was a slip of the tongue in the moment, frustration, etc., that he can move forward on and still remain with the Jazz. But I just need to know more. It was certainly what's shocking. It was shocking that no one else allegedly heard it, or at least Quinn didn't, who would have been there in the exit interview. All these, the Jazz take prolific notes of these exit interviews, although I don't imagine one of that would turn up, especially if it was sort of a comment on your way out the door. But who knows? We'll see. And I'm interested to see how the investigation pans out. Yeah,
I agree. We'll keep our eye on this. I'm not a big fan of the because you hear this a lot. The whole, well, why now? Why not earlier? To me that's used by a lot of people to discredit alleged victims, and I'm not a big fan of that. So but I will say, the corroborating witnesses aren't there, and we haven't heard any more. Like you said, we haven't heard any more stories come out about it. And typically that's what happens. So I think signs are pointing towards maybe there was a misunderstanding and it didn't go well. But honestly, who knows? And I don't even want to try and speculate.
Yeah, and when I say why not here, I'm not talking why now. I'm not talking about him. Right. It seemed almost unimaginable to me. I guess I'm calling out the press. Right. I mean, his brother still plays in the league. Right. I mean, it's sort of unimaginable to me that someone in the press. So I'm not talking about Elijah Millsap when I say that. I'm talking about if this was a story that someone in any press corps knew about, right, and just refrained from discussing. That's a good point. Questionable. Why now me? Like not absolutely. Him saying it. I want to be clear about that. Also, in the past, we've talking about why does it seem that Paul Millsap is so salty to the Jazz? He might be a perfect fit. And maybe this is the reason. It could be. That is his brother, right? And that would obviously be a reason why you wouldn't want to return to that franchise if it did occur.
Yeah, it makes sense. Real quick before we move on from the Jazz, did you see the E60 on Rudy Gobert?
I haven't seen that yet either.
It's fantastic. It's really, really good. I can
imagine.
Well done. I found myself wishing it was longer because these are half-hour episodes, but it was fantastic. Definitely worth a watch. Everyone go out there and check that out. Okay, we've covered on this show. We've covered some pretty controversial topics. We just did, and I think we've navigated through them with some varying degrees of success. This one, James, I think might get us thrown off the internet altogether. Okay. I freaking love Bill Walton. I love Bill Walton. He is like, I know people can't stand him. They hate him. And I kind of get it. Why? Because sometimes he is pretty annoying, but at the same time, dude's just insane. Like he's just like watching him cover the Pac-12 tournament last night was just so much fun. I love his weird Bill Waltonisms. Like to me, they're fun. What are your thoughts on Bill Walton?
Look, I get why it's annoying to people, but it's enjoyable for me. And I think of it in this context. I always wonder, I mean, obviously he respects John Wooden, right? Like it comes out clear as day in almost every broadcast he's on. There's a reference to UCLA or John Wooden in the glory days. And I just thinking of this, obviously extremely contrasting personalities. John Wooden, quiet, the leader of the floor general, so to speak, and making a team go, and obviously unprecedented success that will probably never be duplicated in the history of man. Okay. And then Bill Walton. Now, if John Wooden could somehow work with Bill Walton and meet him halfway and accept him for who he is, then far be it from me to be the person who say Bill Walton sucks. That's all I'm saying. Like if it worked for John Wooden, then god dang, I better make it work for me. And I love it too. I mean, first of all, I enjoy some Grateful Dead. So those parts always make me smile because I feel like
he went on a dead tangent last night.
Right. They don't get enough press, and Bill Walton's making sure they will.
Exactly.
Consequently, I ran into him back in the day when the Dead played their last show in Chicago without Jerry, with Trey on the mic. He was in the same hotel as me, him and his whole family, all 38 of them. So, there was a Bill Walton sighting, and his wife, Lori, is awesome. I've had many actually email exchanges with her trying to get Bill on the show, and I've provided unsuccessful to this point, but I enjoy it. But I get why, if you're truly there just for analysis, how it could become sort of a thorn in your ear. Right.
Totally.
But I mean,
like I'll never argue with someone who can't stand him, because I get it. To me, that's what makes it so fun, because it is just so bananas.
Very different from back in the day when it was him and Snapper on ABC NBA. Do you remember that?
On NBC. Yeah.
So he's different. This is sort of his homage to like, man, I've made it. If you guys don't like it, I'll wait for ESPN to fire me.
And another good friend of the show, Brain the Steve, he hates him. He can't stand him. And I'll never try and take that away from him, because I get it. But really my love for Bill Walton started back in the day, because and we're kind of dealing with these issues now as Jazz fans. I felt like Bill Walton was the only national guy who gave the Jazz any love. And he's still, to this day. Last night he was talking about the Utah Jazz. He was talking about Adrian Dantley. He was talking about how much he loved watching Jerry Sloan. And he was telling Jerry Sloan stories on air. So to me, that's where it started. And then I was a little bit of a Walton apologist. I won't deny that. But now it's just to the point where it's so bananas that it makes college basketball fun, because college basketball is not the best product in the world.
I'm in agreement. I mean, it is pretty ironic in the most crucial part of the games how he's like, and the sun sets on the Arizona desert, like in his voice. And you're like, whoa, man, there's 30 seconds left and the team has the ball. Like it's beautiful. Like, I can't even do it. And that's a terrible attempt at it. But I'm just saying, like, most crucial moment of the game. And he's talking about the Sonoran desert and the lizards that climb over the rocks. And so it's unique. It's him. But he wasn't always this way. And I think you're right. I think a lot of that does harken back to his look. I mean, I can remember just like the pick and roll. What a beautiful thing. The boys from Utah, Carl, and I mean, so you're right. That's probably ingrained in my heart, the appreciation for his appreciation of the way the Jazz played back then. And then you add in a little dad and a little flair. And I can never criticize it, but I get why people do.
Dude, last night when the Utes were playing the Huskies and he was barking, every time he mentioned the Huskies and he's barking, to me, that's freaking hilarious. Like, I get why people would hate it. I get it. Why people are sitting at home rolling their eyes and cringing. But to me, it's great. Like, he's taking it to a new level now. He really is. Like, he's not, he doesn't care anymore. It's done. Like, he's just going to be Bill Walton. And who cares if he's got a job or not? It's amazing. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about, and we got to plow through this because I got to heart out in a little bit. But we got to talk about BYU first of all, blowing it against Gonzaga. Although I will say I'm proud of the BYU fan base, because it wasn't a meltdown. To me, they viewed it as a positive, and rightfully so, because Gonzaga is really good, really good. And to put up a fight the way you did, I know it's heartbreaking to lose that way, but to put up that fight, that's very impressive, and you should be positive. So I'm proud of the BYU fan base for that. Not so much about their reactions to the Nacua brothers, but with the reaction to the basketball game, I'm really proud of them, the way they handled it.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising. I'm proud. I mean, we should point out here, Utah got that W versus Washington. You know,
pretty cool.
I mean, there's still hope. Granted, it's ever so slight. I don't even know if it's measurable. There's still hope, Utah fans. As for BYU, I mean, look, they had the chance, right, to be the team that beat Gonzaga in the regular season / conference tournament, had the lead, looked as if they were the better team. And they had the better half of it for the first half. Came out in the second half, shots didn't drop, looked a little flat. And you could totally see that Gonzaga, you know, has superior talent, and they took it to them. You know, they're moving in the right direction. They're probably going to be a 7, maybe an 8 seed. I don't know, maybe a 9 in the tournament. So that'll be fun. I saw Utah State's the first team out. So, you know, unless they win the conference tourney, that's no good. And BYU may be the only team associated with Utah playing the NCAA tournament. So that's something you can, you know, put in the rock and say, here we go again. I'll be interested to see. Mark Pope's done a hell of a job. I was rooting for them for multiple levels. I have many friends who are Gonzaga fans. They're still waiting on that national title. And if I was Mark Few, I sort of would have thrown that game, in all honesty. It's the old,
we've always said that.
One loss or don't you, you know?
Right.
It seems too unimaginable that they could go undefeated and win the NCAA tournament. But let's be honest, with the way that college basketball is played this year and COVID, et cetera, this is Gonzaga's best shot they stay healthy to bring something to John Stockton's alma mater in Spokane that will truly be one for the ages. That program now is having one and dones.
It's crazy. I mean,
Gonzaga is having one and dones. Let me repeat that. That is bizarre.
They're getting to that Kentucky level.
They are.
It's crazy, especially in the conference they play in too. Very weird.
No doubt.
We almost made it through the whole entire year without talking about Utah basketball, but they did. They got the win, and they looked good actually until the last minute and a half. I mean, I think they were up 15 with 2 minutes left, I want to say, and ended up winning by 3. And to me, that's not even necessarily Utah as it is. That's college basketball. You know, it's just an ugly sport. It's not a good product. And I hate to keep harping on this, but it's tough to watch. With that said, though, we didn't get March Madness last year. And I didn't realize how much I missed it until I started watching the tournaments. And it's so much fun. Like, there's basketball. It's 11:15 on a Thursday morning, and there's basketball going on right now.
It's beautiful.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's so much fun. I'm so happy it's back. Utah's going to play USC. That's pretty much a buzzsaw waiting to happen. I don't anticipate them beating them today. This show will probably be up after the game's over, unfortunately. But good luck to him, man. We'll see what happens. I don't know. How excited are you to have March Madness back?
The level of, look, we're not there yet, in my estimation, out of the pandemic, but we're getting there.
We're so close,
and the
man.
Return of the tournament, it's exactly what it should be. It's spring. It's the beginning of summer in normal times. And now it's, for me, sort of setting that tone for we're getting out of the miserable year that 2020 was. And it's the beginning of the end. So, I mean, I hope it goes off. With what we just talked about at the top with Duke pulling out of the ACC tournament, I'm starting to get nervous now. I'm really starting to get nervous that it won't happen. But let's hope that it does, because that's what it will symbolize for me. And I'm stoked. Like you say, I can't wait to fill out a bracket. Can't wait to take everyone's candy, not money, candy. And I love it. I'm so excited. And I mean, I watched a fair amount, not a lot, of college basketball, because like you say, it's normally when I'm trying to take a nap on a Saturday.
Yes.
And I'm right to sleep. So that, that's kind of how I feel about it. But nonetheless, I will intensely watch the tournament.
Yeah. fingers are crossed, man. We've been in this thing a year. And last year there was so much distraction going on right when the tournament was about to kick up. Because remember the conference tournaments, I think the conference tournaments played, didn't they? I can't remember.
Most of them were like a game or two in.
I think that's right.
It was like boom.
And then we didn't get that. But it was so distracting. There's so much going on that I'm not even sure I knew it wasn't happening, but I don't think I fully grasped what we were missing at the time. So I'm super stoked it's back. We'll be doing we'll just announce it right now. I haven't even talked to you about it. Let's do a Dog and Deuce bracket.
Let's do it. Fill it out.
Anybody who wants to join this, whether you're watching on K-Patter TV, Backcountry TV, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, anywhere, hit us up. Hit us up on Twitter. We'll have them hit you up because it's the easier Twitter handle. Remember, you are at Dog and Deuce. That's James's. So hit him up. Let him know you're interested, and we'll get this thing going. It'll be fun, man. It'll be a fun way to welcome the tournament back in, and we'll throw this out on Twitter too. We'll both do that, so that'll be good. I'm super excited. I think this will be fun, and I'm just so happy we got the tournament back. Let's talk a little bit. Let's move a little bit into college football. The Nacua brothers have transferred from their respective schools and are going down to BYU. Now, I took a small shot at BYU fans earlier. Because a lot of the reactions were very BYU fan-esque in that basically they're winning the national championship now. It's just the level of smack talking towards the Ute. Like, if you want to talk basketball, you got us, man. Like, I've seen a lot of Ute fans try and justify the rivalry there and try and bring BYU fans down a peg. You can't, man. Basketball-wise, we're not even close right now. But football-wise, dude, you haven't beat us in over a decade. Like, let's not start talking trash now about what program is better until you can actually prove it. That's all I'm going to say. That's the only rivalry smack I'll talk. But the Nacua brothers are going. These are huge gets for Kalani Sitake.
Yeah, coming off that year, and I think there was some personal reasons why one left from Oregon and the other from Utah, Pac-12 to Independence overnight. And look, they're very, very good football players, wide receivers, right? I mean, they're next level. Any program, many wanted them. The Utes and the Ducks were fortunate to get them out of high school. And now BYU is fortunate to get them in the transfer portal.
Husky, Puka played for Washington.
I apologize. I'm thinking of the Sewells. Okay.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, Huskies, yeah. My apologies. They all go. Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
We're losing people to Oregon and Washington that I'm not happy about.
I know.
So it just gives me. Anyway, they're back in Provo, closer to home. They're from Orem, right? And I think there were some personal reasons why they went there. And look, I don't have any disdain or hatred for the Nacua brothers. I appreciate what Samson did while he was here. I felt at times he was underutilized. And obviously, I think if he was having, 80 catches a season, he'd have to think twice because Salt Lake City and Orem aren't that far apart.
Right.
But he wasn't. And BYU pass game was prolific last year. Now, granted, that was with Zach Wilson. And Zach Wilson is not going to be under center. So I'm not sure how much he gets. But I wish them the best, just not when we play them. They can have a great season, just not when they're on the field versus the Utes. I do have a question for you. And I think this is very interesting. And I know we're running short on time, but I need to get your thoughts. So why haven't the quarterbacks / wide receiver, and we lost Brian Thompson to Arizona State too. I think we mentioned that a few weeks ago. He's out the door as well. So we're losing a major part of our receiving core, at least from a Ute perspective of last year. But considering how good the University of Utah defensive backs have been, right? And when they go 1v1 in practice, why hasn't that made our receivers and or quarterback combinations better?
I don't know.
You would think the windows that they see every day in practice or when they go 1v1, I know they're not Alabama. They don't go 1v1 all the time, but they go 1v1 a lot, more than a lot of schools. Why haven't we seen the results on the field on Saturday? because they've gone up against next level corners. I mean, and so the quarterback has to be tight as the receivers routes do. Why haven't we seen that?
I don't know. And I think you could throw that question about the offense altogether, because Utah defenses are stellar. They've always been stellar under Kyle Whittingham. I can't think of a single year where the defense hasn't been great. So I don't know. I have no idea. You would think that would make them that much better. Other than, honestly, to me, it really comes down to quarterback play. And Tyler Huntley he's not the norm at Utah. He's the anomaly. We don't have good quarterbacks usually. And this has been a gripe that people have had, including myself, with Kyle Whittingham. Hard to argue with the results overall, obviously. But if there is a gripe, it's definitely with the offense and the quarterback play. I think it's left a lot to be desired. And I don't know if it's just mismanagement. I mean, the recruiting's there, obviously. They're pulling in guys like too many 4-star guys. Like they got too many guys at this point. So I don't know. It's a good question. Any theories?
I don't. I mean, I think that's right, with the exception of Tyler Huntley, who throughout his career developed into a very good and accurate passer. But you would just seem it would be better. I'm not asking for great. Like those windows in practice have to be tight based on what you see them do on Saturday against the defense do against very good quarterbacks and receivers, right? And so you would feel like come Saturday, there would be a little more leeway because they're going up against first round picks or second round picks and at corner and safety. And so it seems like there would be that not huge because you're still playing, Pac-12 football, but the little margin for a little difference between Jalen Johnson and say, Arizona State's cornerback, and maybe they have a good one. I can't remember now, would be just significant enough that the passing game would be a little more effective.
You would
not
think
great,
so.
Not out of this world, just slightly more effective. I mean, last year's sort of a throwaway, with the injury early on and then Bentley coming in and struggling. We'll really see, what we got going this year. Like you say, a lot of 4-stars in that room. I'll be interested to see how many transfer out next year, but I'm excited.
I am too. Let's move on to not nearly a fun a topic, and that is Meyers Leonard. Dude, I don't know if anyone's heard the video. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. He was on Twitch streaming video games, and he said, I mean, it's just the worst anti-Semitic slur that you can use. And he said it, and it was very blatant, and it was, to me, I mean, I don't want to try and interpret what his intentions were, but to me, it sounded very deliberate. It almost sounded like he was trying to tone it down from something worse, to be honest, because he paused right before he said it. But it's bad. Like, it was bad. And I mean, it's the anti-Semitic slur that's, I would equate it to the N-word. That's how bad it was. And he has come out and said that he didn't know what that meant, which to me, maybe that's true. And in fact, I kind of have to think it is true, because I don't think if he knew whether he is anti-Semitic or not, I don't think anyone would publicly say that on a public forum like that. So I got to think that's true. But what is that, like, what environment is he in where he doesn't understand the gravity of that word, and he can use that language so casually? To me, it's just, and at this point, I don't know if any NBA player has ever been just cut from the league altogether for using language like this. I can't think of anyone, but it seems to me, if there is a situation that merits that, it's probably this one.
So I didn't hear it. You told me what he said, and it's unacceptable, right? And let me just I try to live my life by this. If you don't know what a word means, don't use it. That's what I tell my kids, whether it's a good or bad word. Like, don't try to sound smart if you don't know what the word means, because you probably will misuse it. Don't don't say a word you don't know what it means. That's like rule number one in life, because If you don't know what it means, you're allowing people to interpret it in your intelligence, your lack of education. You're allowing people to interpret many things about you.
Right.
So let's only use words we know. Okay. Like, to me, that's not really an excuse. Like, because I don't allow that to be an excuse with my children, and they're not playing in the NBA. So I'm sure as hell not going to allow it to be an excuse for him. Right.
Right.
And if you didn't know, you know now. Right.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do about it? Like,
right.
It's unacceptable. Again, it's hard for me to know it's just hard when any one moment can end a career, like, that isn't physical harm, right, of some kind. But it's unacceptable. I mean, there should be repercussions. I don't know if it's a suspension or termination of his contract. Again, I mean, considering who he plays for and the city he plays in, I mean, let's be, there are snowbirds in Miami that hail from New York, and the population of New York there's significant, Jewish population.
And I think the owner of the Miami Heat is Jewish, if I'm not mistaken.
That may be true. I didn't know that. But so you're going to have to answer to the community you live around and the broader NBA community as a whole. But it's unfortunate. And look, I mean, I've never been on Twitch. I don't really play. I've only recently started playing FIFA with my daughter to try to teach her about soccer form, because she won't listen to me in any other way. And maybe she shouldn't, frankly, I don't know. But so I've never even been on Twitch. I can't, and it's sort of scary to imagine that for me, given modern day society, the things that go on in a forum like that, where just individuals cannot be really held accountable.
Well, that's not true, actually. Twitch actually has
time 101.
Twitch is they've actually recently really clamped down on their terms of service. He's banned from Twitch now.
Okay.
So he doesn't.
How hard is it to form another account where they don't know?
Well, they're going to know if Meyers Leonard pops up. You know what I mean? Like it will be very obvious. So but he's banned. So to me, the best response I saw for this situation was Julian Edelman, because he wasn't doing the whole cancel culture thing. And I know people really like to complain about that. He wasn't trying to be angry with him. He was trying to educate him and say, hey man, come hang out with me. Let me show you some good people. And to me, I thought that was the most mature and the most productive response that I've seen for this whole thing. And a lot of people are bringing up the fact that he was the only player who stood for the national anthem. And I want to be a little, I don't want to condemn anybody who wants to stand for the national anthem. But I also don't think you should ever condemn anyone who wants to kneel for the national anthem. So to me, I don't equate standing for the national anthem as being a racist. And I know a lot of people are drawing those comparisons, and I understand why. I just personally, I don't think anyone should be drawn over the coals for wanting to stand. But at the same time,
or kneel, like you said, or kneel.
Exactly. Like, to me, however you want to express your patriotism or your concern for what's going on in the country is absolutely your right, and I think you should do it. Personally, I would kneel. I would not stand. But I'm not going to say because he stood, he's a racist. But it's getting. I'm not even sure he's an aggressive racist. I'm worried that he might be one of the ignorant, just ignorant of what's going on. And a lot of the time, people who are ignorant, and these are issues we've talked about on the show, and everyone has had this conversation in recent months. But people who are ignorant, a lot of the time, especially recently, tend to act like they're the smartest people in the room about it. And I worry that he may be, if he's not, that may not be him, but it feels like he's associating with people or is in a community of people that do that, because he's able to throw around that word so casually, not even knowing the gravity of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I haven't seen his response, but here's the thing. And again, I try to do this too. Like, whether he knew the word or didn't, whether it was intentional or not, here's the thing you have to evaluate. You said something that offended someone. And if you want to be a better human, you must learn from this. Because I try not to. And look, no one's perfect. I say offensive stuff all the time, like to my, like, and not even being offensive, like just my tone or something, like in a conversation with my daughter, she'll be like, wow, you're angry. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just trying to explain it to you. So words, tone, they can all make things, more or worse than they're intended to be. But in this situation, you clearly said an anti-Semitic statement. And the best thing you can do, and the most admirable thing you could do, and the most human thing you could do, Meyers Leonard, would be to admit it was a mistake and learn from it and get better. Because, denying it, saying you didn't know the use of the word, it doesn't excuse it. Now you do. So where do we go from here? Right. And I say that while totally saying it's wrong. He shouldn't say it. Anti-Semitism is bad. Yeah. Right. But the only way we society, and especially white people in this context, can make and help further the causes of Black Lives Matter, anti-racist basketball club, which you threw up last week, which I was happy to see get a redo for our show, or another play, some spotlight, is to learn from them and get better. So that would be my advice to him.
I agree 100%. And if you do want to hear our interview with Blair from Jazz Fans Against Racism, you can go back and listen. I think it was episode 440. And also last week we threw that up in place of a new show. We threw that up on our YouTube channel. So you can check that out there. That is youtube.com/DD on sports. And it was great conversation. I really enjoyed talking to Blair. That if you want to figure out how to navigate these difficult situations, he is a perfect example of how to do that, without presuming to talk down to anybody, and also admit that you don't have all the answers, but we're trying to get better. That's kind of what he represents. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that's my interpretation. And he's a fantastic resource in times like this. So I think it's great. Go Jazz, man. Go Jazz. Here we go. Finally.
We should have mixed that in somewhere else in the show, because that's a hard way to end.
It is. I didn't want to give it too much time either, though, because it just seems like, dude, since it's been a year, and we got 30 seconds left, so I'll hurry. It's been a year, but it seems like we've had so many of these kind of conversations, and I'm getting so sick of having people just being so awful that we have to have these conversations. I just want to talk about basketball. And I want to talk about football, and I want to talk about the fun things in life.
And it's hard to imagine. The dude graduated from college.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to say I don't believe him, but it's just,
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
That big of a hole, can you?
I know. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's really tough. Really tough. That is going to do it for episode 359 of Dog and Deuce. We're going to be talking lots of Jazz basketball to finish out this season, and I can't wait. We're going to be talking March Madness. Get on our bracket. Hit us up at Dog and Deuce on Twitter and get in on this bracket, because this will be fun. We'll figure out, I don't know, a prize or something. We'll figure out something. It'll be a lot of fun. And we'll be back next week, breaking down next week for the Jazz and everything else going on in the world of sports. And we want to know what you think of it all. So send us an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com. I'm Dog.
And I'm Deuce.
And we will see you next week.
Thanks for making us a part of your day.